Today we're going to be looking more in depth at parameter parsing and what sort of those parameters which I showed you in the previous tutorial, sort of what they did and how the whole system of parameter parsing works in VB.NET. I am recording this, as you can, no you won't see, but I am actually recording this on the day before Comp 1. So I would like to start by wishing everyone good luck with that exam. We shall face the storm together. Anyway, sorry if you're watching this sort of like if you're like in a different year group or sort of in the future. If you're watching this, sorry for that slight sentimentality. Anyway, so we're going to start by sort of talking about sort of local and global variables. Well, a global variable, as most people will know, it will be sort of something that's accessible for throughout your entire program. Now, when you're working in terms of object-oriented programming, yes, and it's sort of like some people, as far as object-oriented programming, are very sort of anti that. It's kind of like it goes against the whole principle of encapsulation, which is that everything should be contained within a particular class or whatever. And stuff like that. That's not exactly what encapsulation is, but I'll explain more about that in future episodes. I think after I've done the console, after we're done with console, we'll go across and we'll talk about programming concepts before going into making any particular Windows Forms application. But in terms of global, in terms of single class programs, a global variable is something which is declared outside of a particular sub. So a global which exists throughout the whole time the program's running and can be accessed by any particular sub. The other idea is then sort of so what are local variables? Well, local variables in this case would then be things that are within a particular variables that are within a particular method. And we talked about methods last episode. Yeah. And the idea about sort of with variables is to keep their scope as low as possible. So when I say scope, I mean like the amount of the time which they're sort of going to be active and initialized inside a program. So obviously, if we declared a variable inside a for loop, it would only exist within that for loop. It wouldn't declare. It wouldn't exist. You wouldn't be able to access it in any other particular sub unless you did like static stuff. But that's in other languages. Can't really do static variables in VB.NET, I don't think. Anyway, so then you sort of, if you say, oh, you can only have a variable in one sub. If we take sort of like a basic sort of addition calculator as an example, if I just type a line here, don't bother with this, dim number as integer. It's kind of like then when we create our other sort of subs with this whole idea bit with modular programming and stuff, second sub, we can't access number, we can't assign anything to number. It doesn't show up, it's just auto-correcting me using the stuff here. So it's kind of like, how do you get it? Well, the idea is that basically from somewhere inside your main sub, you're going to call, or from somewhere inside a sub which is called from the main sub, you're going to call, somewhere we're going to have to call this sub called the second sub, so like to use it. So the idea is that basically what you can do is if when we declare, it's kind of like what are these parentheses for? Well, these parentheses actually contain the parameter definitions. I'll say about ByVal and ByRef in a minute, but if we just pass ByReference number as integer and just declare the data type, and then inside this sub just say number equals 1. Sorry, don't know what minus equals. Number equals 1. If we just give this a value of equal to 3, we then console.writeLine number and then after we call that sub, console right line number. Obviously, as you can see currently, we've got a error here, and that's because we haven't passed this parameter down. We haven't. It's saying, yeah. So what we do is put number in there, and yes. So the idea is now that it will write out, it will declare and assign the value of 3 to the number, console.writeLine, and then write out the number in that state. Then the second sub will run, change the value of number, and then console.writeLine, write out the number, and obviously we need console.readLine on the end. So then if we just test this program, we should find 3 and then 1. So then sort of the next question is, well, if this is ByReference parameter parsing, what is ByVal parameter parsing? Well, ByVal takes a sort of physical copy of the value of that, and it sort of generates it. I suppose it's like a local variable. I don't know for sure. So yeah, right. So ByVal, that's just taking a copy of the value. So in theory, this thing up here shouldn't change when you write it. It should just write out 3 twice, as it does. So yeah, ByVal is sort of used and is sort of I wouldn't comment on other programming languages exactly as to which is default, but in C#, by default all parameters are passed by val unless you explicitly say ref before it when you're declaring it, but that's just a fact on the side. Yeah, and sort of this parameter parsing, although it's kind of useful because you can save on memory in single class programs, it sort of becomes more important when you're looking at multiple class programs, because the idea that you can't have a totally global variable or a variable that's sort of accessible from outside the class is sort of one. The idea is that basically you should facilitate the usage of that by writing subs and by writing methods which can change the interior values of each class. I mean, that's sort of very broad and not necessarily relevant for comp1 because comp1's all in one class, and yeah, but that's just sort of something on the side again. So in terms of actual use of parameter parsing, well, you sort of saw me do it when I had the other thing. This is going to be a very short tutorial for some reason. If you want to, say we had a, this is one thing which sort of confused me for a bit, is dim number as integer. So say this was an array, sort of, well, how do we sort of let the program know, hold on, just side, so 3, 2, 1. If you're looking at this like what the hell, make sure you check out tutorial 2, I think it was, where I said arrays. So now obviously we're getting an error because I haven't given it an index and this thing's expecting an integer. So in order to make it expect an array, we can do it in 2 ways. We can either do it like that if we don't know what size the array is going to be, and then it hasn't been initialized in the program, so I'm not sure exactly how you do it. Or no, you don't need to specify size here, sorry. So if you put number there, then say number 1 equals 1, then the errors go away. So obviously this is an assignment, so it's going to assign to a particular value unless you were assigning it, unless this over here became an array, in which case then you could do it all in one statement. So yeah. For some reason it's not shouting at me about that. I wonder what happens if the program runs. Yeah, we just get that because that's the type for it, because we haven't specified an index. Okay, I think I'm going to leave it there, and in the next tutorial we will talk about yeah, sorry about that, I just had to do this one. In the next episode, we're going to be talking about different types of file formats, and I'll show you how you can get the file format and sort of, in a way, create your. This isn't like exactly. Yeah, I'm going to talk about the different types of file formats and also teach you how to handle serialized plain text file formats in VB.NET. There's a number of different ways you can do this. You can do it the old-fashioned VB6 way or the VB.NET way. The .NET way is slightly more complicated, but it gives you more functionality and is apparently more efficient. But obviously it's up to you. The VB6 method is what's used in comp on skeleton code. Okay, thank you for watching. As usual, comment, rate, subscribe, you know the drill. I'll see you next time.